King Thrushbeard. There once was a king who had a daughter. Okay, a princess. She was more beautiful than words can tell. Aren't all princesses beautiful? But at the same time so proud and haughty that no man who came to woo her was good enough for her. Okay, so she's a princess of a princess. She's spoiled. She turned away one after another and even mocked them. That's bad parenting. One day her father ordered a great feast to be given and invited to it all the marriageable young men from far and near. They were all placed in a row according to their rank and position. First came kings, then princes, then dukes, earls, and barons. How old was this daughter that kings are coming? The princess was led through the ranks, but she had some fault to find with all of them. One was too stout. That barrel, she said. The next was too tall. Long and lean is no good. The third was too short. Short and stout can't turn about. The fourth was too white, pale as death. The fifth was too red. Turkey cock. The sixth was not straight, oven dried. She's not very nice. So there was something against each of them. But she made specially merry over one good king who stood quite at the head of the row and whose chin was a little hooked. Why, she cried, he has a chin like the beak of a thrush. That's a kind of bird. After that, he was always called King Thrushbeard. When the old king saw that his daughter only made fun of them, and that she despised all the suitors who were assembled, he was very angry. He swore that the first beggar who came to the door should be her husband. A few days afterwards, a wandering musician began to sing at the window, hoping to receive charity. When the king heard him, he said, "Let him be brought in." The musician came in, dressed in dirty rags, and sang to the king and his daughter. And when he had finished, he begged alms of them. Are you going to make me sing? Oh. The king said, "Your song has pleased me so much that I will give you my daughter for wife." The princess was horror-stricken, but the king said, "I have sworn an oath to give you to the first beggar who came, and I will keep my word." Who did he swear to? Wait. He swore. Oh, okay, so he was angry at her earlier, and that's when he swore. Okay. No entreaties were of any avail, so she begged and said, No, Dad, I'll be okay. No, I don't, not him. A parson was... Oh, let's learn what a parson is. Okay. We find anything as a bookmark. Here's a battery. There's a small battery. We do what we can with what we have. Okay, and please excuse me while I go here. Boop. Parson. Oh, well, why would I do that? A parson is the priest of an independent parish church. That is, a parish church not under the control. Okay, so it's like a little priest. Priest. So is that the guy in charge of like a little church? Okay. Totally get it. I'm on board. I understand. Okay, so you've got... Where was I? A parson would... So this would be like a minister or something like that who would be brought to marry them? Okay. A parson was brought, and she had to marry the musician there and then. When the ceremony was completed, the king said, "Now that you are a beggar woman..." Ooh, that's ouch. "Now that you are a beggar woman, you can't stay inside my castle any longer." Would she still be queen eventually? You must go away with your husband. The beggar took her by the hand and led her away, and she was obliged to go with him on foot. I'm not sure if I was the beggar, I'm not really sure that I would want to have, if I were the beggar and I knew all this was going to happen, I wouldn't want to marry her. Like I'd like say that I would agree with it only if she would stay and eventually become queen. I mean, yeah, because if I were a beggar, I'd want to be, king later eventually. That'd be good. It'd be a good life. And give her an opportunity to, like, maybe make amends so her dad will, like, love her again. I don't know. Wow, boy, was he tired. I don't know. He's not a good person. This book is full of people who are not very good. Okay. When the ceremony was completed, the king said, "Now that you are a beggar woman, you can't stay in my castle any longer. You must go away with your husband." The beggar took her by the hand and led her away, and she was obliged to go with him on foot. So she's walking. When they came to a big wood, she asked, "Ah, who is the lord of this forest so fine? It belongs to King Thrushbeard. It might have been thine. If his queen you had been, ah, sad must I sing. I'd accepted the love of the king." I'm not... Okay. So she regrets not marrying at least one of the ugly kings. No. Weird poetry. Don't like. After that they reached a great meadow, and she asked again, "Ah, who is the lord of these meadows so fine? They belong to King Thrushbeard, and would have been thine. If his queen you had been, ah, sad must I sing. I'd accepted the hand of the king." That doesn't really make sense, because she knows whose forest it is, so why is she asking? Then they passed through a large town, and again she asked, "Ah, who is the lord of this city so fine? It belongs to King Thrushbeard, and it might have been thine. If his queen you had been, ah, sad must I sing. I'd accepted the heart of the king." "It doesn't please me at all," said the musician, "that you are always wishing for another husband. Am I not good enough for you?" Nobody's good enough for our little princess of princesses. No. At last they came to a miserable little hovel, and she said, "Ah, heavens, what's this house so mean and small? This wretched little hut's no house at all." The musician answered, "This is my house and yours, where we are to live together." The door was so low that she had to stoop to get in. "Where are the servants?" asked the princess. "Servants indeed," answered the beggar. "Whatever you want done you must do for yourself. Light the fire and put the kettle on to make my supper. I am very tired." But the princess knew nothing about lighting fires or cooking, and to get it done at all, the beggar had to do it himself. Well, that's okay, because he already knows how to do all that stuff. So, I mean, he can help her learn, but instead of being a jerk, telling her what to do. When they had finished their humble fare, they went to bed, but in the morning the man made her get up very early to do the housework. They lived like this for a few days, till they had eaten up all their store of food. Okay, I was reading ahead a little bit there because I had a thing to say, but I'm going to hold my tongue. Then the man said, "Wife, this won't do any longer. You can't live here without working. You shall make baskets." So we went out and cut some willow twigs and brought them home. She began to weave them, but the hard twigs bruised her tender hands. Oop, I don't have this screen set up properly. "I see that won't do," said the beggar. "You had better spin. Perhaps you can manage that." So she sat down and tried to spin, but the harsh yarn soon cut her delicate fingers and made them bleed. "Now you see," said the man, "what a good-for-nothing you are. I have made a bad bargain in you. but I will try to start a trade in earthenware. You must sit in the market and offer your goods for sale. Something tells me she's not a good people person either, and she won't be able to sell. Alas, she thought, if any of the people from my father's kingdom come and see me sitting in the marketplace offering goods for sale, they will scoff at me, and she'd deserve it. But it was no good. She had to obey unless she meant to die of hunger. I mean, she could go and be a beggar on her own, maybe. I doubt it. All went well the first time. The people willingly bought her wares because she was so handsome, and they paid what she asked them. Nay, some even gave her money and left her the pots as well. They lived on the gains as long as they lasted, and then the man laid in a new stock of wares. She took her seat. So is he getting them or making them or what? She took her seat in a corner of the market, set out her crockery, so that's the pottery, set out her crockery about her, and began to cry her wares. So like, pots for sale, pots for sale. Suddenly a drunken hussar. Oh, I think I know what that word is, but I'm going to look that up. Okay. Okay. I was kind of close. Here. Okay, so hussar. This might not be named after this particular thing, but it's a class of light cavalry. Okay, so it's like a kind of a soldier that rides on a fast horse. Okay. I get it. Okay. Suddenly a drunken hussar came galloping up and rode right in among the pots, breaking them into thousands of bits. She began to cry and was so frightened that she did not know what to do. Oh, what will become of me? She cried. Oh. That really helps me understand what that is. Okay, so that's a hussar, and he's drunk. Cool. So is she still wearing her like pretty clothes? I think those are new clothes. Or those are beggar's clothes, or those are her, not her princess clothes. Oh, what will become of me? She cried. What will my husband say to me? She ran home and told him her misfortune. Who would ever think of sitting at the corner of the market with crockery? He said. Stop that crying. I see you are no manner of use for any decent kind of work. I have been to our king's palace and asked if they do not want a kitchen wench. They have promised to try you. You will get your victuals free at any rate. Okay, so that's a reference to her eating. Again, that's a weird word to use. I want to look that one up too. Victuals. If I could go here. Oh my. Let me press the escape key. Food or provisions. It's just a generic word for food and drink. Okay. Totally get it. Okay, no problem. Where was I? You will get your victuals free at any rate. Hopefully. Not necessarily. So the princess became a kitchen wench and had to wait upon the cook and do all the dirty work. She tied a pot into each of her pockets, and in them she took home her share of the scraps and leavings, and upon these they lived. It so happened that the marriage of the eldest princess just then took place, and the poor girl went upstairs and stood behind the curtains to peep at all the splendor. When the rooms were lighted up and she saw the guests streaming in, one more beautiful than the other, and the scene grew more and more brilliant, she thought with a heavy heart of her sad fate. She cursed the pride and haughtiness which was the cause of her humiliation, and of her being brought to such depths. You know, his dad should probably welcome her back one day to be like, ah, just kidding, needed you to learn a lesson. Not a very good king. What does he do? If he does this to his daughter, what is he like for all of his subjects? Every now and then the servants would throw her bits from the savory dishes they were carrying away from the feast, and these she put into her pots to take home with her. A savory is one of the words to describe, you know how there's like sweet and salty? Well, there's savory is one of the classes of different kinds of taste. Let me see if I can get a good definition, because this one's important. So it's like the opposite of sweet or salty. So it's like, it's a really, really powerful just flavor, not really. So there's some flavors that will kind of, you know, like eating a lemon, it'll go, but there's some kind of foods that aren't like that, but they're like the other way. It's hard to explain without giving a whole lot of different kinds of foods. So you might say something like, if you ever to eat like South Chinese, like Cantonese style food, let's say, for example. So old Chinatowns, if you're in North America, let's say if you're in the United States or Canada specifically, you'll have things like sweet and sour pork, something like that. There is, if you were to take some of if you were to take the sweet and the sour out, and you would have like a meat dish that had a good gravy, but it wasn't salty. So kind of in that class of food, then I think you might discover something savory in there. But I'm not sure if I would say something like a steak is savory. But I might say like a meat with a certain kind of sauce would be savory. That is an interesting one. Thinking about taste is very difficult to communicate these things. And it's not something I've really thought about, so let's move right along. Sorry, that was random, I know, but you know, you read something and you get inspired to go and explore somewhere and learn, think about something. Just take a moment. And this is the weird thing about reading for me, I suppose, is I read very, very, very slow. And it's not just this. This is actually pretty fast for me. But when I'm reading something else on my own, I'll pause and I'll think about things. And maybe that means I'll be faster next time, but usually means I'll be slower next time, and the time after that, and the time after that, because I'm learning more and more things. So I have more and more of an expanded mind to think with. And I'll think about all these different things as I'm reading along. So, well, what does that mean? And this kind of stuff. And I think it's a great way to really experience a book a little bit more. Even though I could read through this really quick and be like, okay, I read it, and close and be like, okay, I'm done. And then what? How much of it did anything for me? Could I say any of these stories? Would I remember any of these stories? Probably. I'm a little weird, so I probably won't remember them anyway, but will I learn anything from them? And I might not have everything memorized, but the next time I come across some of these ideas, I'll know what they mean right away, and maybe I won't even remember where I learned the ideas from, but it will be because I read all these books nice and slow, and I learned some things, and I just think that's really important. I think that's, I don't know, it's something that you can do now, sitting down, having access to something like an encyclopedia online, even if it was an encyclopedia in books. We used to have those things. Or if you got access to a computer or phone, you can look up just words. And some e-readers will have like a way for you to look up words. And even if you think you know what a word means, it's good to look some stuff up, especially if you're a young reader or you're new with English, for example. I'm going to move right along now that I lost my place. Okay. So savory dishes he was carrying away in these little pots. It's kind of weird. But that's so the things don't leak into her pockets, right? All at once the king's son came in. He was dressed in silk and velvet, and he had a golden chain round his neck. When he saw the beautiful girl standing at the door, he seized her by the hand and wanted to dance with her. But she shrank and refused because she saw it was the king Thrushbeard, who had been one of the suitors for her hand, and whom she had most scornfully driven away. So that's Thrushbeard's son? Thrushbeard wanted to marry her, and I'm sorry about that alarm. Do you have anything interesting to tell me, phone? No, you don't. Phone is telling me that it's been a little while. Phone isn't trying to be mean. Phone is doing phone's job. It is okay. So I'm confused. So the king's son is Thrushbeard? I'm really confused here. Maybe it'll get clearer later. Okay. Her resistance was no use, and he dragged her into the hall. The string by which her pockets were suspended. I'm not sure I understand what that means. The string by which her pockets were suspended broke. Okay, so I'm guessing pockets were a different thing back then. The plight of girls and pockets. Okay, so she's got a dress, because we know she's wearing a dress because of this down here, right? So this picture didn't come with this story at all. So it was a new artist who read this and said, okay, well, maybe she looks kind of like that. So let's pretend that she looks like that. And so she got a maid's dress on, but it's not going to have pockets like we have pockets. So do I have something? I mean, I can show you the pockets. So it's not like the pockets in your pants. You can imagine how weird it is to have a dress with pockets. They kind of should. I don't know why they don't. But so she must have like a little string for a belt or something like that, and little pouches or something like that. And that's what's being called a pocket. I'm not really sure. So that's why one of her strings can break. Down fell the pots, and the soup and savory morsels were spilt all over the floor. Oof. When the guests saw it, they burst into shouts of mocking laughter. She was so ashamed that she would gladly have sunk into the earth. She rushed to the door and tried to escape, but on the stairs a man stopped her and brought her back. When she looked at him, she saw that it was no other than King Thrushbeard again. Oh, karma. He spoke kindly to her and said, "Do not be afraid, and I and the beggar man who lived in the poor little hovel with you are one and the same. For love of you I disguised myself, and I was also the hussar who rode among your pots. All this I did to bend your proud spirit and to punish you for the haughtiness with which you mocked me." Are all the king's jerks in this story? She wept bitterly and said, "I was very wicked and am not worthy to be your wife." But he said, "Be happy, those evil days are over. Now we will celebrate our true wedding." The waiting women came and put rich clothing upon her, and her father with all his court came and wished her joy on her marriage with King Thrushbeard. It's weird because I talk a lot and I lose my breath and I yawn. Then in truth her happiness began. I wish we had been there to see it, you and I. That's the third time in this book that I've seen like the narrator speaking. Okay, so her father, I want to think that her father was in on this little joke with King Thrushbeard, because maybe he's like, I'll teach my daughter a lesson, and maybe his father wasn't being mean when he sent her away, and it was a plan. I want to think that there's a plan. I still think that's a very odd story. That's still mean enough that I would consider that not suitable for the young.